Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Van Sampson,
Curtis M. Lawson,
Paul Christian Glenn, Joshua Rex, Raz, Rob Smills.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Clutch of Personalities. I am sorry it has been so long. We are going to try to make sure that I never go that long again without putting on another show. Good morning to you, Dylan. Nice to have you here. As you can see, I'm joined with Raz T Slasher, who you also might not have seen much of recently because we've both been busy as hell. This morning, we are welcoming with us the creators of the Dead Money comic book. We're going to go over their Kickstarter. What we have going on here, Dev is a tabletop RPG writer with credits on Dune, Conan, John Carter of Mars, and also the new Marvel Universe RPG. And he has published he is a published short story author, history buff, and a longtime fan of science fiction and fantasy. Trust me on the history stuff; he knows his shit. We were talking before. And Jesse is also an award-winning game writer with credits on Assassin's Creed and Odyssey, Far Cry 5, Watch Dogs 2, Hyperspace, and Wizard 101, which I am all about. His tabletop RPG works include a Game of Thrones D20 and also the Marvel Multiverse RPG and Vampire. So let's get into it. Oh, yeah, Dylan's going to make fun of me because everything's wrong. And I take my hat off, so I have a flat head, so have fun. But so how are things going with the Kickstarter now?
Good. We had a big week. It's I think that the Kickstarter landscape has changed a bit since last year from all of the anecdotal shared coffees and whiskeys and so forth with various Kickstarter creators. I think it is a bit harder these days. I mean, obviously, like the big titles, the G.I. Joe Kickstarter or something does gangbusters. But yeah. I think it's harder for messaging to get out for little folks. And as well, we were more ambitious this time. The first one, we were just trying to find funding for issue 1. We were trying to be pretty modest in our goals. This time we raised, what we wanted. We're doing 2 issues, and each issue is about 25% bigger in terms of art and story. So it's been taking more effort to get, to cut through the noise. But yeah, certainly the last kind of few days, we've had a big surge in support, and that's fantastic.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And yes, Dylan, you did just recently see them on Splash Pages, but I kidnapped them and made them come on my other show as well because we like to have fun here too. Also, for you guys that are watching, if you go ahead and comment, like down as it says down in the credits hashtag Dead Money. We're going to have a giveaway at the end of the show for people to get their chance to win a copy of the digital version of Dead Money issue number 1. So please be sure that ask any questions that you want, but also be sure to give a comment so that you too can own part of this franchise. And
Words are
can you
hard.
tell it's morning? Words are hard. Yes, words are very hard. I wake up at like 5 p.m. and I woke up today at like 7:30. So
I don't think I've done
we're
a
gonna
show
have,
before 8 p.m. in like 2 years, probably. Not that I mind. I mean,
yeah,
I was up anyway. So.
we're excited for this. So
No, yeah.
so I'm glad they got an upsurge on the donations and stuff recently, or pledges. And I'm going to go ahead and show the people who are watching who have not seen yet some pages from the comic. We're going to go from issue 1, and this is one of, we'll explain it later, but this is one of a set of connecting covers that are going to be going out hopefully. And this is a great book. It's a nice Western. I love in the very beginning here, you have this entire cast of characters that if you're trying to figure out who's who, you can flip back to, keep track of how are they connected, what do they actually do, who's connected to who and why. And it helps me particularly because it's really hard for me to remember when I'm reading a new book who it is, what's going on here. So we have an asteroid coming down and smashing into Earth and some wolves. And then we hop over to a train here that's out in the Yuma Desert. And in the first issue, we basically end up meeting everybody. We see what they're doing. We have the train conductor, and I believe it's his wife, or is it his daughter?
It's his wife, yeah.
It's his wife. Yeah, the other guy, it's Chavez has his daughter with him. Okay. Here you get to see a soldier who's having some flashbacks. So that's one of the demons that he's fighting, is going through some morphine. The conductor here is worried about getting everything done on time. Got to make it through. We can make the extra money if we get it. Howard and Ella we see here is a card sharp and a con artist. And they also get up to naughty stuff as we're going through. Yes, there is naughtiness in this comic. And I'm not going to go through and introduce every single character, but as you go through, it's, your typical train ride back in the day. People sitting in the dining cars where it's all fancy and having some drinks, playing some cards. And eventually, as we go through, they're going to run into a little bit of trouble. And then all of these people are forced to get together and work on keeping alive and keeping each other protected. But they all have their own little demons and things that are haunting them as they go through this landscape. So would you guys like to elaborate a little bit more on that?
That was a great summary. I'm going to hand it over.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first issue, as you said, we have to set up the situation, set up the setting, placement, all the characters, introduce everybody, kind of get across what it is that we're going to be tackling in the upcoming story, essentially. So we, establish it as a Western, establish it as a horror comic, etc. But on top of that, if you can read deeper into some of the layers, you start understanding some of the conflicts the characters have. So you can see some people facing each other and squaring off already. Some people talking their sort of philosophical bent on life, how they approach things like that. And most definitely the biggest thing we wanted to show was the class structure and the racial structure of the U.S. from that time period, which is a pretty important topic for us to look into. So it was a bit of a challenge to sort of condense all of that stuff into the pages we had and hit all of those marks and goals. But we feel like we did a half decent job of being able to introduce everybody, point out who they are. We realized one of the criticisms is some of the folks look a little similar, but those are limitations in a black and white comic where people frankly do look like people. So you have to kind of start reading and get to know them before you're comfortable sort of identifying who they are from their speech, from their mannerisms, etc. But all of that effort was definitely sort of put into the comic to get it moving that way. And as you said, there isn't much we can get up to in the first issue because we have to go through and introduce so many things. But we do end on a pretty big high note, so we'll wait till the folks who end up being able to pick up the comic to read it or get a free copy from us to check out where that goes, basically. But that was sort of the idea behind the first issue, the construction of what we needed to do for issue 1, basically. So I don't know. You want to add anything else to that, Jesse?
No, I think that's really great. We had to learn a lot. Dev and I have been writing professionally for many years now. But and we've read a million comics individually, I'm sure, but still having to kind of retrain ourselves to how much you can put down in a page and a panel. It is really it's a fascinating experience. It's a great learning curve. We selected Tomas Ira as a veteran comic artist because we could lean on his expertise and he could tell us when we were crazy or trying to do way too much. But he also is incredibly accommodating. One of the pages that you kind of went over quickly, that 9 grid one, is sort of our homage to Dave Gibbons and The Watchmen with that particular style. It was, I think it was a little risky because it's a lot of stuff to convey in one page, and there's no dialogue in it. It's all through emotion. That one on our left. You meet these characters and right the focus on like how much you can express in that, and Tomas does a fantastic job with it. When he gets to linger on people's expressions and so forth, it's just terrific. His rendition of these characters is etched so sharply in my mind now that that's the only way I can think of them. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I do love the way it's laid out. You guys, I think we discussed lettering before. It's done really well. It's kept in really tight, and you can follow it. Which I'm a big fan on lettering, and I'm always like, the letterer is the bass player of the band. You follow the art and such, but if you always read from like left to right, and you have to and down. And so when you get some of the bigger pages, it can sometimes be hard to follow. And you guys got very good advice on how to set up your lettering and where it went. There's plenty of room for it here and there. It doesn't look like it's covering up too much. So that to me is something that's very impressive. I just kind of geek out over letters. I think we talked about that last time too. It might have been after the show though. But I love the way that this comic is put together, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we have coming further in the comic. Because we've got the setting, we've got the characters, and now when issue 3 comes out, I'm getting ready to see where the horror starts coming in. I mean, it's tragic and scary already that you have people that are going to be trapped out in the wilderness and such. But we see that preview with the meteor, and then we don't see much else going on beyond that at this point. So
I actually want to roll back to that the commentary where you were like, it's an absolutely normal train ride, for this time period. But we just saw this giant asteroid. Otherwise, it's entirely normal. And if you look to your left, you'll see a Jamba Juice.
Well, that's hopefully the setup, right? Because we initially that page kind of was something we ended up coming up with much later, because we realized that if we don't have something interesting to grab the reader's attention or have a question we put in their mind, it's not going to go as well, basically, right? Because the rest of the comic was, again, just introducing everybody and having the setting or whatever. So we wanted that first page to hit you, to let you know that there's some weird shit coming, basically, right? Like it's not gonna just be like a normal thing happening after this. But then we kind of put that away and you're not going to encounter that until like issue 2, 3, etc. Basically, so. But it's
a good hook.
Yeah, it's a medium in which you have to do these sort of things to be able to set up the story. So that's one of the things I feel Jesse and myself have gained through our experience because of world building, writing for games, etc. We know, kind of like what you need to do to get a person's attention and to make it focus in on what you need to do. Because sometimes folks don't have the attention to get through like the first little while to get to something that they know is good, basically, or whatever, or they're not that interested in this individual's journey or what's happening here. So it's always good to kind of give them a little treat up front and sort of be like, there's more coming. You got to trust us. You got to give us a chance to sort of let it play out a bit, right? So it follows my rule I have where I'm willing to give like any movie 15 minutes to get my attention, any book 50 pages to get my attention, any person doing whatever they're doing 10 minutes or whatever, and then after that I'm kind of like, all right, you've been given that leeway and you gotta use it. You gotta do something good with it, right? Otherwise I'm out, right? So it's that's sort of how I judge it, by how if something is successful for me or not, right? Now we don't know if we hit that for everybody, but we really definitely try to put it in there to hit that note, right?
I think in a world where we have so much media to consume at every level, I think the rules that you have, the 10 minutes for this, 15 minutes, I think that's brilliant. Because again, there's so much out there, man. If you can't hook people, or if I can't be hooked as a consumer quickly enough, I've got to find something that's going to hook me, because we only have so much free time.
Yeah, I want to say I think it's a hard balance, because there's definitely the appeal of the short video, the short hook, the that kind of fight for the attention economy.
Right.
But a lot of classics, and a lot of what I think we also need to kind of retain and train, like I see with my kids, is the ability to kind of focus on sort of long form storytelling ideas, articles and so forth. I mean, I don't know if you guys are fans of The Wire, the classic video show. Well, The Wire, I mean, everybody said, and it's kind of true, it takes like 3 or 4 episodes for it to lock into you, for you to lock into it. And I can't explain exactly why that is, other than, it's a very complicated story with lots of little bits of characters and stuff, none of which are like the big save the cat moment, because that's not how, they operate. But
right.
The payoff is immense, right? And once you kind of find your way into that. So there's got to be a balance, right? Of you need things to be, interesting and hooky and engaging, and you want to throw your characters at least on the edge of the frying pan. But I think you also need some time to develop them and get their personalities and the setting. So, but as I say, it's a little learning experience, and sometimes we get it more right, than others.
And I think that's a great Chekhov's gun to start off with. And I also love all of the diversity between the characters. You have a bunch of different races involved, and statures of who's like, okay, this person's obviously better than the rest of the people there. She is quite sure that she is more liked than anyone else. And the con men and stuff going in, having the vet, having all these different people, and I am curious to know what is in the suitcase. You guys don't know yet, but you'll be like, hey, there's a suitcase. What is in there? And so that adds to it all as well. It's not just a bunch of people. They are very diverse. And you were talking about how it's hard to tell sometimes the different people because of the black and white. And maybe in a couple of instances, but I think most of them are so well, they each have their own definitive features that it's not really that hard to keep track, as long as you're paying attention. If it makes sense with the who's saying what, if you're kind of divided, it's only going to be between like 1 or 2 people, and it'll be obvious when you're reading it who it is. So we have a question. Dylan would like to know, are there any illustrators that you would love to create a variety cover or variant cover, I would say, of your comic?
Definitely. Do you have any thoughts, Dev?
Well, I mean, I would love to go back in time and get the OG originals that I grew up with. I mean, Jack Kirby is obviously one of my most loved comic artists of all time, but that's a wishful sort of thinking level. So what we've done for this comic actually is we reserved one variant cover guest slot per issue for basically up and coming guest artists, largely because the way the economics work, we don't have millions of dollars to be able to afford the top end artists or whatever. And in fact, we'd prefer to give the chance to folks who are a bit lower end to get them a bit more exposure and be able to do more on our comics. So the guest slot we reserve, we do the interview, we give those folks our script, etc., and we say no limitations, use your imagination, do what you want, give us a cover. In the end, if it fits and it works, we'll print it. And if it's a bit of a challenge, we're happy to step in and help work out what needs to be done. So far, that process has yielded us quite a few great artists, and we're going to continue to do this. So based on the fact that we're basically doing at least 10 guest slots that way, we're going to have a total of 11 to 12 artists working on this project by the time we're done. So it gives them an opportunity to show their own sort of take on them, etc. And we on purpose kind of went out of our way to find like folks out in Latin America. There's 2 artists that are from Argentina. We have a couple right now we're working with that are up in Canada, etc. So we want to kind of go around and find folks who aren't household names yet, maybe, and give them an opportunity to work on a comic and sort of showcase everything all around that way. So the current artists we have on this issue is Jose Helder and Jesse Lamb, right? They're doing the two variant covers for us this time around. So you already saw in the background the cover by Jose, which was that incredible zombie fight scene, etc. Right? So yeah, this one right here. So we think he's quite amazing. So that's one of my favorite covers so far we've done. The cover for issue 1 was by, who was it again, Jesse? I'm trying to block on the name.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah. So you got it. Yeah, Mato Saw, the Argentinian. He did our horror cover, which I don't think you have a copy of there, Del, but it was on the first Kickstarter, kind of scary, monstrous one.
Okay. Yeah, and I can pull up the Kickstarter if you guys would like to go through some of that now, so we can show people.
We have all the variant covers there. So, we're very proud of what we're able to accomplish within the limited budget and frameworks we have. And as I said, as we hopefully are able to grow the projects, we can engage some of the more, pricey talent, some of the folks that are a little bit higher on the scale that work professionally. Anyway, that's the dream. But as I said, if I had the choice, I would go back and get my man Kirby to do something. And you'll see, even in the first issue, we have certain scenes where the background of the wilderness has that Kirby-esque starscape that's in the background there, and that was a choice on purpose by us, right? Okay, you got the Kickstarter up, so yeah, here you'll be able to scroll down and see some variant covers down there.
Yeah, and the comic starts off with this. I love that.
Yeah, I love that the cast of characters thing. That and maps are like really big for me in comics or books or really any kind of media like this.
These horrifying wolves too.
Yeah, you can see the starscape there. The red cowboy that you featured on the comic preview is Diego Garibaldi, who is another Argentinian friend of Tomas. And we love, if you scroll back up for one tiny second. Yeah, so that's a sketch that Diego is doing for issue 2. So we really like that spotlight on an individual character. So as Dev mentioned, we're going to focus, the plan right now is for each issue to have one variant cover that focuses on one different character in a different kind of color scheme, but that all kind of relate to each other. So we're really excited to see how this one and the one for issue 3 comes out. And then we talked about the Jose Holder cover, and then if you scroll down, you'll see that's the Jose one, which is fantastic, the bonfire. And then the one more beyond that Yeah, that's Jessie Lamb, who is terrific. She worked on the first season of Invincible as a storyboard artist, and she did this as sort of a Louis L'Amour, homage to westerns, influenced by like James Bond posters and stuff. And it definitely highlights the western vibe with a little bit of the atmosphere of the skeleton, the bleached bones in the background. So it's just great stuff.
Yeah, I need to go through. I got my grandfather's complete Louis L'Amour collection, and I have not sat down and read them yet. I am sorry to say, but I have them there to go through. Yeah, these are all just great.
Yeah.
Great thing. It was hard when I was trying to come up with thumbnails and stuff to pick out what coverage to use, and it became more of a use of space than it was like this cover is really cool, to do. But as you can see, some of the artwork here as the train has crashed, it's kind of a devastating thing because it's black and white and we can't see exactly maybe what all's crashed up and what's going on, and so it's kind of a wait and see who they can find. And there's some pretty traumatic moments too as they're going through that, just like, oh, and this happened, and I'm sorry to say that there's the thing that they do to horses when they've been injured, and they're hauling a lot of horses, and that's unfortunate for the horses and for the people watching that don't have a stomach for it. So
I did have a friend of mine when we were campaigning for the first issue, who is a horse person, right? She has her own horse and rides, and she jokingly said, "No horses get hurt in this, right? Like I'm cool to donate, to buy your comic, but there's no horses, right? Over the course." I'm like, you could reverse the chart. It's okay. She said, no, it's fine. I'm just teasing, but I was a little worried for a minute.
We're like, we will give you the refund if needed, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to situations like that, you can tell who did and didn't grow up with Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
Because your oxen and your horse, things would happen all the time, and you're just like, damn, I got to buy another one.
For sure. I mean, I can't promise, but somebody might get dysentery in the
right.
I would love that. And you died of dysentery. 3 hours away from town. All right. So I'm going to go through with this with you guys, and we discussed before. It's kind of easier if I go over to the rewards page because it shows it in US dollars. So, you can't see my collection. Well, okay, you're going to see mine, but I usually don't do the shows after I've made a pledge because then people are going to be like, oh, we know what she's backing. But all right, so the difference about the reason I brought this over here was because if you are from the US, it shows you the difference. And so it would be $17 to get the deluxe bundle in PDFs, but it's only about $13 for folks in the United States. So you have the PDF deluxe bundle. There's also the catch-up issues on PDF, and that's going to run about $16 here in the US. The main cover prints come with these are the physical comics. They come with the PDFs, and that's going to run about $21. These are Diego Garibaldi's variant covers. Going to run about $22, and these beautiful ones by Jose and Jesse going to cost again about $22. Then we have the pulp, and all of these, by the way, also include the PDFs. But what can you tell us about the pulp covers? The pulp prints.
So the pulp prints was an idea where I have a huge nostalgia for like that earlier era of comics. Specifically, my memory is of the Gold Key comics from way back, because I grew up reading the Star Trek versions of those comics, which were, had a huge impression on me. Just the way they were laid out. So we wanted to have for this comic to sort of go back in time and have that appeal. So we knocked out a version of the main cover that's essentially a sepia tone newsprint type of feeling, changed the logo to the old timey gold key type of logo, and put, the little 10-cent cover on it essentially. So and it's just another variation on the main cover effectively. And we're going to run that pulp cover version for all 10 comics also. So if some folks want to have that look of that pulp era for the comics, you can get that variant basically. So the idea was to have different streams of these variant covers. So you're going to have the run where Garibaldi's doing sort of all of the character sketches that'll hopefully in the end map into 10 issues you can put next to each other that'll make like one large print of everything. And then we have the pulp ones that are going to have that run. Then we have the guest artist that's going to be a whole run of comics also. And then obviously the main cover by our main artist, Tomas, which is going to be its own run. So that way it gives individuals the ability to focus and kind of buy what appeals to them. So if you're someone who likes those old-timey covers, you can get that entire run of the comic. If you like just the main cover, that's fine too. And, we're hoping there's some people that enjoy the comics enough to buy maybe a collection of one or two each or whatever, or all of them, to be honest, if you really want them. So it's just the ability to be able to offer a lot of an artistic experience. And again, to be able to involve a lot more extra people in the process to be able to create all of this kind of covers. And the balance comes in, like obviously we're different. Everyone's a different person, so they have different things that appeal to them. We wanted to have enough variation to be able to offer a lot of different folks what they like to back on Kickstarter, because I think part of the appeal of this Kickstarter process is to give folks choice basically on what appeals to them, right? And that's how we kind of came up with what variants we're going to do and why, essentially. Hopefully that explains a little bit of our methodology here of what you're seeing, basically.
As many different ways to storytell it as possible and to give people the feeling to immerse themselves in it is great. We also have the Ride or Die bundle, and this is the digital editions of 1, 2, and 3 featuring the main covers. You're also going to see the digital editions of all future issues until the story is completed. So if you invest in this, you can go ahead and get everything as far as it goes. There, I think you believe we're looking at 10. It might end up go to 11. If so, you get the 11th one for free. On top of that, we have the full package, which is the 8 comics, print and PDF, and pretty self-explanatory. And these are fun. So if you need if you're a writer and you're looking for some advice, you can go ahead and pick up these, and you'll have to add your comics on the side, but you can get a chat session of varying lengths with Dev and Jesse. The first one is a 1-hour meeting that you get with them over a video call. The second one is you can submit writing to them. You can do it beforehand or afterwards, and up to 5,000 words for this one, and they'll talk to you about it, and they will send you some notes and just discuss and cover what you're interested in. Like, hey, could you tell me how I'm doing with my world building here? Is this plot, does it have holes in it that I'm totally missing? Is my dialogue okay? If you have questions on basic writing stuff, they'll go ahead and sit and chat with you and then give you a review on your work. And you can get a similar package also that has 10,000 words. So if you're interested in getting anything like that, go ahead. There are 10 of each of these limited available for you to do. And these guys have been writing and stuff and creating worlds for a very long time. So it is a really good piece of advice. It's not just, well, I got these 2 schmoes who wrote a comic and just gonna go ahead and I guess talk to them. I don't know. But and of course this was the catch-up bundle, which guess what I got? Catch-up bundle has issues 1, 2, and 3 with the main covers, and then I get the PDFs for that too. And we're going to go over real quick with the optional add-ons, and of course you can add on all of the different variants comments. You can add on the writer's reviews as well. So I don't think I'm missing anything.
Well, that was very comprehensive. In
so we do want to point out for the.
Go ahead, Dev.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say the digital print that we're offering, you're going to get both a PD format and a CBZ file, basically. So you can, some folks like to look at their digital comics in that. I think that's the most popular viewing format for the comics. So we're offering both of those types with the any of the packages you buy, basically. So you'll get both files, and you can kind of use whichever one you prefer in that sense, right? Your personal reader.
Okay.
I just wanted to get that out.
I was just getting lost because Dylan's chatty today. Love you, Dylan. So he has Dylan has friends who know the owner of Gold Key Comics. So apparently it's being revived. And Dylan also suggests that you guys should check out Lori Calcaterra's comic series, Path of the Pale Rider. It's a Western zombie series where death is broken. That sounds very interesting. Okay, so we have everything. And by the way, I did notice that when I had flipped over the first time to the Kickstarter and I was getting ready to load it, that your number had changed. I always love that when we go over and do it. We've had ones before where we're just watching the thing and it's just starting to go up as we're sitting around chatting about it. So really hope that you keep getting some pluses. If you're watching, please go ahead and type in hashtag dead money in the comments, and it will enter you for a chance to get a free digital edition of issue number 1. And go on over. You can see I got the little, I did do a shortened, what's the word, link to the Kickstarter there. So it's a little bit easier to go through, but I'll go ahead and drop this in the chat as well, the full one, so that you don't have to type anything out. We will get that up so that you guys can click on that and go straight to the Kickstarter. And so I wanted, while we had you here, since this is a storytelling podcast, and we'll hop back and do a little bit more on the Kickstarter, but you're both doing a lot of gaming worlds and stuff that you've created. So can you tell us a little bit about just what you get into when it comes to world building and some of the different games that you've worked on and how that might have affected the way that you pitch your scripts and do things with this comic?
Yeah, we've had, a wide range of doing stuff, whether pen and paper games where, Dev and I actually first met playing games in university. And, I did a lot of GMing, various games. Amber is kind of my first true love, as a mature game. But we've done Vampire and Mage and Fading Suns and Everway and obviously D&D and GURPS and then I worked at a small Canadian RPG studio for a bunch of years, working on games like Big Eye Small Mouth and Silver Age Sentinels and Game of Thrones D20. And, through a lot of that, it's a question of sort of what your framework is, what the experience you're trying to tell is. Obviously, when you're writing a role-playing game, you're trying to kind of build a really rich world of hooks and kind of interesting NPCs and scenarios for the players to inject themselves in it. It becomes very much the player story. And kind of moving into video game space, I worked a little bit as sort of a background content writer on games like City of Heroes, and then moved in to work on things as varied as Armored Warfare and Webkins, and a long stint at Wizard 101, which was a great crew to be down with, and then some bigger AAA games like Assassin's Creed. So, but in all of those things, while you're doing a lot of work on the world and the environment, you're also sort of centering around who and what the player experiences, whether it's a very sort of defined character like Bayek in Assassin's Creed Origins, or more of a open template, blank slate character, like the deputy in Far Cry 5, or, the wizard, your young wizard in Wizard 101. And, in a lot of these times, for me, it's kind of pushing it at the fantasy and the vibe and the atmosphere. And over the years, whether Dev has been, kind of on the contract or not, he's often been my kind of confidant and sounding board for like, hey, does this stuff make sense? Is this logical? Or I'm like trying to find some new angle on this. What do you, how do you see it? And he's been a great wealth of advice on that stuff. So I'll hand it over to him as his world building side.
Yeah, so after we graduated, I went into IT and finance for quite a while. And this was always, game stuff was sort of a side hustle, a little thing I got into once in a while, depending on what it was. And interestingly enough, a lot of the way I approached things came from my ability to do technical documentation. So one of the first things where I worked as a technical writer was for the company BlackBerry. So actually, if you've ever used the BlackBerry, I wrote the help files in that product essentially. So
That's my first phone.
I don't think I got a credit for that, but anyway, there it is, right? And then from there, I went into finance, and I had to often write technical requirements for various projects and things like that. And the funny thing is, you actually have to use narrative rules when you're writing that stuff, because when you're writing those technical documents for folks to use as business rules and do things, if you can make it a compelling narrative, you're going to get a better product essentially. So believe it or not, you're actually world building even in technical documents or any type of documentation you do to appeal to folks who read it. So even in that part of my life, I learned how to construct narrative, how to use language, how to get across what needed to be conveyed, basically, right? And I have a personal theory where I believe that language and storytelling is a shorthand form of how we as humans communicate very important information to each other along, to survive, basically, right? And if you go back and examine all the original oral traditions, that's exactly what it is. All these stories that resonate with us and work from time immemorial is because they codify in language a way to pass important information that we need. So that's, how computers communicate digitally. We communicate via storytelling, and the stories that have an important impact on you last and always resonate through time and always go through. So that was a lesson I learned quite early in my own career, is how to write and how to tell a story. And that's actually carried on over into what I later on started doing when I started building worlds and writing rules and trying to get into things with a lot of the role-playing games I've written, basically. And it's kind of funny because when a lot of folks will read stuff I've done, they don't quite know why it works for them or why it's there, but it's because I've taken a lot of effort into building in a narrative that appeals to all of the things we all queue up and reverberates with us, basically, right? So it goes back to, like I said, I studied literature at university, so and a lot of that was understanding the meta structure of how language and story works and why things appeal to people, to folks, basically, and kind of making sure when you're doing your own writing, you were able to embed that in there so it does grab them and pulls them along to what it is you're trying to say or explain. And a lot of times people know what they like or what they enjoy, but they don't know why, right? And that's the part where I usually kind of try and come in and use my technical analysis and try and figure those keys out, and then try and make sure that the writing or whatever we're presenting or building has those elements embedded within that to get that payoff. So when folks actually consume that text, they're able to experience that essentially. So I don't know if we always get it right or if it's, it's more of an art than a science, but there is definitely a science that goes behind how you construct and write something that has a broader appeal, basically. So I don't know, maybe that was going a little in depth into technical writing, but that's how I approach it.
No, that's awesome. It's something I hadn't thought of. We do everything we can about storytelling here. We had a series that we need to reboot, and just we started it, we did it, we realized how much we could improve upon it, and it's The Art of Storytelling, and it goes from We like say we go from cave paintings to creepypasta. So we start doing everything from back in the day before it even became oral tradition, and then following all of the different oral traditions and all the different forms into what we have today. And I honestly had never thought of world building for technical writing. So that's really fascinating.
That is. It's amazing. I also want to thank you guys. Growing up in the 80s as an autistic kid before we knew what autism even was, the way that I learned to interact with other people was through tabletop RPGs. And I always love to meet people that have, created them or, interact with them, because between that and acting in haunted houses, that I think those were the only two things that made me feel like I was a normal person at some point in time in my life. So thank you guys for being involved with those things and creating those things, man. That's awesome.
No, it's great to hear, because as growing up myself, I didn't have a lot of friends or didn't fit in a lot of places either, and it was exactly role-playing game, D&D, and other venues where I was able to make friends and kind of have a social life to some degree. And when I got older, I wanted to be able to pay that back. So I have the folks who inspired me to kind of have a fun childhood, and it's like, well, like, what can I do now that I'm the old man, I'm the adult, right? To some degree, it's like, okay, well, I can I have talents in these areas. This is what I can do, and this is what I can produce. So it's nice to be able to sort of come back full circle like that. And and I equate that story to a Greek tale where they find an old man and he's planting olive trees basically, and they're like, old man, why are you planting these olive trees? You're not going to live to see these things. And he's like, that's right, I'm not. But somebody planted these other olive trees for me when I was able to enjoy them in my life, and that's what I'm doing for the next generation. So that's a lot of that for me goes into work I do to be able to do that, to be able to provide like a place and a space for other folks to enjoy an experience, essentially, right? So that's also part of the community building aspect of what it is we're trying to do, essentially, right?
Definitely.
Another question. Dev, are you interested in etymology? Dylan loves etymology.
Yes. I'm like I said, a pretty huge fan of history, and part of that is understanding sort of where things come from, how they got created, how they morph from one thing to another. And I go back a lot, because I find, even when going through university, that a lot of the text, literature, history was dominated by Western experience, essentially. So, and you don't really connect that to where does all of this stuff come from? Like, people don't understand that the Greeks and the Indians had a lot of communication back and forth. Their philosophy is actually impacted by each other, right? Like, when you go to see all these Hindu temples, they have Doric columns that came directly from Greek architecture, right? And you go the other way, you have the mythology of Zeus, Olympus, and the gods. It came from the polytheistic religions of the Hindus, right? So you don't really quite understand that there's all of these connections that run right through all of this, right? And then when you get to Egypt under Ptolemy, all of that Greek culture came with them and infused their past experiences of the Egyptian culture, right? And then you get into later on Islam, which adopts many of the tropes and things, storytelling from their parts of the world into that, and that eventually all does come to the West, right? And we've forgotten these traditions of how we're all connected like that. So I always try and see if I can delve into the ancient sort of origins of a lot of what we are, and try and somehow bring them up to modern standards to retell those stories or that mythology or that lore, to be able to be accessible for people who don't have that depth or breadth of historical knowledge, essentially, right? So yes, I'm a fan of etymology. Yes.
I have a really fun, quick etymology story for you that just took place on my trip to New Orleans. I was sitting by some of the not so brightest people I've ever met in my life on this airplane. And we had a stop in Tulsa to pick people up, and because it was just this charter flight. And so they'd filled us in from the back, to the front, so it would be easier for them to get on and off. And while we were loading, them, it was like, okay, before the people get on, anybody who needs to use the restroom, there are 2 of them. They're both in the back. Go ahead and go for it. And this huge line forms, like everything. I sleep through everything on a flight, and so they're like shaking me. And yeah, I'm gonna have to get up and go to the bathroom. But we'll wait until the line quits being formed and catches up to us before I'll get up. Okay, I'm like, okay. And when they announced it, they were saying the lavatory, and the guy is sitting next to me. His wife's sitting at the window seat. I was in the aisle, and he's like, I guess we can go to the lavatory. They have to say it so fancy. And she's like, yeah, they do experiments in the lavatory. And he's like, right? They have us do chemical experiments. And I said, actually lavatory is kind of, it means a washroom or a washing area. That's right. And he's like, really? Yeah. Wow, those British people are so weird. And I just about head-butted the tray in front of me. It was just like, what? Those British people in their chemical lavatories are just crazy people. I have no idea. Oh, it was even worse on the way home. But that was like my little etymology story about this. Also, Dylan, I still play Wizard 101, so I will invite you back. You can come and join me and check out all of my stuff. I've just been a little absent lately. So there you go.
I was there for a while. I need to get back into it, man. I need to put it on a new laptop.
Yeah, they have guilds now and guild houses, and I am part of a guild with my friend Raven, who has built a lot of really. Well, he gives me things and I build them. He doesn't have the patience. So he's like, here, have this. Now make it look nice. Okay. So I'm like, okay, can you lay out my gardens? Because there's a way to build up these gardens. And so they're raised and stuff. And he's like, can you build up some like 18 by 18 gardens for me? Yeah, I can do it. I got nothing but time. I'm good.
I love how
he's just like,
has a fantastic appeal of kids. When I was working on it, I used to joke, but not really, that we were trying to write a story for people from ages 6 to 66, because you'd have fairly young kids, and you'd have parents and grandparents who were playing with them, which is a great way of creating family bonds, and people playing remotely, which is just an amazing and this was this was pre-COVID, so that was fantastic to hear, right? Being able to hear those connections and stuff, and I'm sure it carried on through that period of time. But I remember one conference where I gave a talk about writing for Wizard, where a woman and her son come up after to say hi to me, and he was probably about 9 or 10, and she's like, oh, he really wants to meet you. And I was like, oh, that's great, and started talking to him. And then she kind of just sort of steered the conversation, talk about her wizard character, her wizard experiences. I'm like, oh, I see how this is. Kid was like, yeah, I could just like vanish here and just let the earth swallow me up and be fine. No, it's fine. It's how enthusiastic people are and stuff. So it was just fun.
Well, I love it because it's a game that it does require some thought to play. I mean, it's easy enough that some kids can pretty much get through it, and you learn strategy as you're doing it, because you for those of you who've never played, you start off as a wizard, you choose a school of magic, and the way that you fight is through cards, and some cards will heal you, some cards will do damage, some cards will enhance things about stuff. And so you have to build a deck that is within a limited range, because each deck can only hold so many cards, and you can only have so many of one kind of like a magic, but not at all.
Right, not at all.
That makes sense. Is that like some of the conditions of how you can hold things, but you can make cards, and you also get houses and outfits, and you can do what stitches are, and like get cool clothing that you like the look of, and so you can get that and have it put on your armor, and you can do all this stuff. But you would be surprised how much you can cuss when you're in the middle of a battle and somebody forgot to put certain cards, and you're like, you're the freaking healer. Why did you not put this and this and this? We aren't going to be able to win. Oh, God. Oh, see, now I'm stunned. Now what are you going to do? Yeah. You didn't cast it on me.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
But the lore. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say a little behind the scenes. So I met a group of folks, the Texans, when I was going to AmberCon, which is a small convention based on Roger Zelazny's Amber stories in Detroit, basically. And so a bunch of these folks showed up. A group of people from Texas showed up, plus one guy from Pacific Northwest. And that group basically became the group that built Wizard 101. So Todd Coleman was creative director, and then he brought on Jason Durrell, who's the guy from Seattle down to Texas. And Jason had been a good friend of mine, as well as the others. And Jason had worked with me on some of our superhero games for Guardians of Order. He worked on the Authority game and been on Game of Thrones. And then when Jason went down to Wizard, he eventually helped me kind of join the team. And I learned a tremendous amount from him in terms of storytelling, world building, writing for families for all ages. A lot of the design of putting in a lot of the puns and Easter eggs and more obscure references in Wizards comes from sort of Jason, through me and so forth. Dev has spent time with Jason at Gen Con and so forth, and we've shot lots of ideas. And Jason has worked on a lot of role playing games these days as well. His the Age of Vikings and a lot of it was Jason on Dune. Dev, I can't remember.
Yeah, I first worked with Jason working on the Conan stuff, and he's a massive fan of Robert E. Howard. I thought I had a depth of knowledge on Robert E. Howard, but he puts me to shame when it really comes down to it. I'm going to give Robert E. Howard a huge shout out because this man was writing in the 1920s and 30s about fantasy and things. And in these modern days, we kind of forget that he's a precursor to Tolkien because, Tolkien's given that medal of being the godfather of fantasy when the reality is, this guy was writing Conan in the friggin' 20s, right? And people have forgotten his contributions and the fact that he lived a fairly tragic life and died pretty young, all things considered. I don't feel he gets the respect or the credit he deserves for what he basically wrote. And during his lifetime, he was mocked for writing such garbage, stories and things. And the reality was, a lot of the versions of Robert E. Howard's stuff that we read was actually modified to make it a bit more romantic. And if you go back to his actual written letters and things like that, it's a lot more poetic and it has a lot more depth to it. So I find I like to sort of give these little shout outs to pretty important, influential folks on our hobbies and our craft and our storytelling. And Robert E. Howard gets the short end of the stick when it comes to how influential Conan really was when it comes to fantasy genre, basically, right? So anyway, Jason was great for kind of really answering and getting into some of the depths of some of that stuff. And yes, I worked with him on Dune also. And again, he has a huge depth of knowledge for Frank Herbert's series also, and a lot of other stuff. He's huge into Vikings, which is one area I don't have a lot of knowledge of, but
I'm definitely a big Howard fan.
So yeah, this hobby has introduced me to a lot of folks to be able to work and learn from. So I'm really happy to give Jason a shout out also.
I'm a big Howard fan.
Sorry,
a longtime mentor of mine, Tim Wagner, just got the chance to actually write some Conan novels. And he was kind of explaining the process that you had to go with through the estate. They had to vet you. The whole process that I found really amazing, that the estate still cares so much about everything that was written, all the particulars they have for writers coming into that world and continuing it. It's pretty amazing.
No, for sure. And the original Conan book starts, believe it or not, with a poem about Dream of Hyboria. So you don't understand that the man wasn't actually a poet when it came down to it. And today he's just, a lot of people's memory of Conan is the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of the movie. And you don't realize that there's a lot more going on here than just the the strongman barbarian just killing people, right? So I find that stuff really fascinating to me personally, just sort of who these people are and where they go. And then I'm glad there's been a resurgence of trying to uncover some of the original stuff and kind of really do analysis on it and figure out what they were talking about, what's going on, and including some of the problems they had, right? Because you got to remember, these folks at this time were still dealing with, sometimes some of the racist tropes, some of the other problematic problems with women characters, etc., things like that. Right. And I like to say that Robert E. Howard was one of the original folks who had strong female characters. He had a way of looking at racism that was a lot different from then what a lot of his contemporaries were looking at. I'm talking strictly about H.P. Lovecraft here, who he was actually empowered with. And you kind of, so it's like, all right, like this guy was really ahead of his time, and I like to kind of really acknowledge that, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Conan, like you were saying, is so much more intense than what people think, and it was for me. I have to get into reading the Conan comics and the books, because growing up and seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger just made me go, oh well, that's fun. Okay, I don't know.
Oddly, I obviously I'd seen that in Red Sonja, but what made me want to go back and read the books, like growing up, was actually Weird Al when they did what was it, Conan the Librarian. That little skit in the movie, I don't know why it made me laugh so hard. And my mom was like, "Oh, that's that Arnold Schwarzenegger thing you watch." I was like, "Really?" And I don't know why it was Weird Al, but it was Weird Al that got me into it officially.
And Dylan would enjoy a gay Conan. I'm sure that there were gay people in the fantasy world. Were there any gay characters that stood out back in the? Because, like I said, I haven't read all of it, but I haven't read any of it.
Probably not
terrible.
Although I'm pretty sure I saw a thread on Blue Sky recently with Gail Simone, the fabulous comic writer who's done a lot of Red Sonja. So certainly Red Sonja has had affairs with women and so forth. But I'm sure there's definitely a strong gay barbarian character out there.
I think Robert E. Howard had hints in different cultures, but never directly addressed that subject, which is fine, because he was having a hard enough time selling his books as it were when his time period.
Right.
So I'm sure that would put him on another list if he did that.
Back in the day, things were so terrible back then. Great writers, and then they got to do nothing.
That's true.
Oh, no, welcome to the chain smoking show, by the way.
Sorry. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person.
I see him and I'm triggered. I'm like, must inhale.
Yeah. So just you also mentioned vampire. We're talking Vampire the Masquerade, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of work with those folks in their more the latter editions of the game. The
Golden Age.
I this goes back 15 years or something, so I don't know what's on my shelf anymore, but I did a little bit of work on Orpheus, which was kind of the spin-off limited series out of the Wraith game, and I'm really good friends with Richard Dansky, who is sort of the Wraith czar, and he has given us a lot of advice on writing horror and atmospheric and so forth. And in fact, I kind of met you and the sort of extended crew because I went to StokerCon last year, the sort of preeminent horror con for North American writers, and Rich kept trying to get me to go there for many years, and I kept saying, no, I don't write horror. He's like, what's your comic book about? I'm like, yeah, it's a Western horror. I'm like, God damn it, Rich, how do you?
Yeah. See, there you go.
But yeah, no, it was fun to kind of dabble in that world and and have a little bit of fun with the Halloween people and working in the scary side of things for sure.
Oh yeah, I've been also a huge player of Vampire again since it first came out with Dark Ages and then the traditional. And then I played Changeling, Wraith. I played all of it. I actually got a chance in my late teens. The LARPing, was exploding especially in the late 90s, and they were going around to the biggest cities in our country that had the largest groups for Mind's Eye Theater and asking them for input to make specific books for specific cities. And they actually did a Dayton by Night book. And the main group that they were consulting happened to be a group that I had, been gaming with for a couple of years. And my friend Kevin and I got to write for the Bloodline, the Children of the Razor. We came up with this cool idea. We pitched it, and they let us write like the whole little blurb about it. And that was probably like the first big writing credit I think I ever had.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I know there's some really talented folks, who've gone through those halls and worked on those projects and stuff. So,
oh yeah,
and I just love in the video gaming worlds how much lore people the people who go through and just skip on the storytelling are missing so much of the game. If you're it's the people who are just dice rollers if they're playing a tabletop. I always make sure, and he knows this because we game together, that if there's going to be a gaming session, there's always in every session at least one sit down period where everyone sits down, you stay in character, and you just talk. You figure out what's going on, you emulate your character, you get into characters, you build the relationships and stuff that you need to have. Because otherwise you're just running around throwing dice at monsters, and it's not really that fun for some of us.
So I approach it from, try to a multidisciplinary or recognizing that there's lots of different people who have different tastes, right? And so, I come at it obviously from the story side first and foremost, but I found over my career and certainly in latter years, I think I have a bit more experience, wisdom. There are times when you have to realize that, different people want different things out of these experiences or these games. And so some people, they don't care about the story side, and and that's fine. I mean, it's wasted effort to try to convince them they must recognize the story is important. If they just want to blast through it, that's great. That's totally cool. If they're enjoying it, what kind of our role is to try to make the parts that they do engage with as interesting as possible. So whether that's an item name or the name of a power or something. And sometimes they'll kind of pause for a second and kind of think about it, and that gives it sort of a little bit more weight. And they might be like, oh, hey, how does this connect, this part to this over here? When working on Assassin's Creed on Origins, there was one story where, like one little quest where there's a farmer you meet who is having a really rough time because his the tax collectors are corrupt, and they've been taking more and more of his money or his goods, and so he can no longer pay for his helpers, and so they've all had to flee. And so his son, who's too young, has been helping the farm, and basically has experienced heat stroke. Okay, and so the initial quest was like, hey, go find the tax collectors and murder them. And I'm like, well, that's fine. I'm okay to do that, as a story thing. But one of the big themes of this particular game of Assassin's Creed is about fatherhood and family and responsibility. So, I thought you should have a moment where you recognize the farmer and his son, and maybe you help out on the farm. And so I had to kind of pitch my case for the team, say, hey, can we find a couple of other activities to do that are not just murder, and where you're helping out on the farm, you're just like carrying some bales of hay or moving some, digging some of the fields up or something like that. And the first couple times they iterated, they're like, oh, this is boring, we don't want to do that. I'm like, no, that's fine. Like, if it's boring, we don't want to do it. But can we find a happy medium where you do a couple of things there? And they sort of slowly came, around to that, trying that out. And then at the end of the quest, once you have helped things on the farm, yes, then you can go hunt the bad, corrupt tax collectors down and kill them. But I had to, to argue a case that, no, you're not going to forget you're an assassin by pausing for a moment. And it gives you a little bit of pause and breath, and you see a bit more of the world. And there were a lot of reviews of that particular quest that came out where people were like, hey, this is cool. This is a little different. This, and it breaks up that flow of just, run down and fight somebody. So there's trying to find cases where you can inject a little bit of the story and theme into the overall world, regardless of what the experience is. And I think that's a really important tool and element of it, Oh, you're muted, Del.
Yeah,
I was opening up my soda. I know some games where they do more of that in the side quests, but I do enjoy having that, the building up reputation with somebody, or okay, we're going to go around, we're going to help this guy clear out, everything that's overrun his area so that he and his son can safely make it from here to there, and we're going to do that. Or, we're going to catch a bunch of fish so that these people can eat because they need to do it. And I really enjoy doing that. And just, and the fun little, I kind of, we got a little bit off track, but with the, all of the Easter eggs and stuff that are put in games, it's so much fun to try and track stuff down. And then like, after you've been playing a game for 2 or 3 years, when suddenly something clicks that had never done so before, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that. It's just been staring me dead in the face the whole time. That's some of that. Terry Pratchett was the king of that with the Discworld books. I absolutely was trying to tell my mom, like, okay, so you mine treacle, right? It's this sugar cane and stuff, and it comes up, and she's like, what in the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, well, because like they had to have, because that's where else would they have gotten the idea for it in Alice in Wonderland to go ahead and they have the treacle well that she's down there, so there must be treacle underground. And she's like, you are dumb as fuck. Like, how do you live? You have some smarts, and then this happens. I'm like, but he, okay.
Did I come back in time for evening soup?
No, I was talking about Easter eggs and then like getting totally caught up tricked by Terry Pratchett because he's good with that.
I just heard Alice in Wonderland and it just gave me flashbacks.
No, we did a 24-hour show at one point in time, and I had about 4 hours where I read the entirety of Alice in Wonderland, and I had to sing all of the songs. And these guys didn't know it, but I had forgotten most of the songs were in there. I thought that they were just from the movie because I hadn't read the book for so long. So I was on the spot making up entire songs and like all of their melodies and stuff. And there's this one song that the Mock Turtle sings about evening soup, and they have teased me about it for forever. Because I'm like randomly singing soup, but it was impressive that I was able to come up with a melody for every song and maintain it.
I still need to go back and clip that and put it up everywhere.
No, you don't. That's okay. Dylan says that RPGs intimidate them, especially D&D, and asks, have we seen the short with the drag queen Troyan had a water walking spell the whole time and they needed that earlier? That would be me, but more frequent.
So I haven't seen that clip, but I think that RPGs can be intimidating. I mean, it depends. Do I have to read this whole book of rules? But if you find a small kind of safe group, and you find the rules light system, and you kind of go in it, piece by piece, I think it's very accessible. And I think these days, between seeing all of the actual plays, all the different streaming, type stories, all the different kind of approaches to it. I mean, that can also be intimidating. Like, oh my God, I am not a, world-renowned voice actor. How could I possibly compete? But that's not, that's like looking at the Olympics and saying, I can't play street hockey, right? Like they're different worlds. You find a couple of friends, whether they're in person, which is best, but online is perfectly acceptable, right? And it's great these days, especially for those of us who either can't get out for various reasons, or we're remote, or the technology makes it so that you can still participate and have that bonding experience and still really create. It's different but the same. So I wouldn't find. I think now is a great time to get into games.
Especially the work you guys do. I've played the Doom that you guys were talking about. I've done the Game of Thrones. I've done the original Marvel RPG. I haven't done anything since, but I'm meaning to. And so if you can find a property that you connect with on a mental level too, that can help you get into it. If you know the books, you know the materials, you can kind of get in that way and kind of get used to what role playing is before you get into D&D and other stuff.
Yeah. And when it comes to, please go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that I think there's enough systems out there now to accommodate every level of experienced player, basically from novice to playing gods, like whatever. It's they're very approachable. I mean, when I started, there was literally 3 or 4 games, and that was it, basically, right? You picked a system, and then you hope you had a good GM that could modify the rules to get you to what it is you're trying to do, basically, right? And but these days, you have the plethora of experience you can basically have, and it's I think it's quite amazing. I see so many younger folks that are just into exactly whatever niche of our role playing that they want to get into, and we have accommodations for everyone now, so it's very nice to see.
Yeah, and there's companies like I love Cullen Bunn, and have had him on a number of times and I met him. And Outland Entertainment right now is putting out a lot of really rules-like campaigns and different gaming systems. You can get a lot of their material online for free. And there's one where it's called that he just put out in a Kickstarter that is a solo game. And you do it by journaling out. So it's really just focused on the storytelling. So you're writing out and it's kind of like the super advanced form of choose your own adventure from what I can tell so far. I haven't received it yet, but I think it's pretty fun. And Dylan, you'll always run into people and spells that could have been used before if you knew how in the hell you were playing them, or the people who you have to say, do not cast Fireball into melee. God damn it. You cast Fireball into melee. Because people play video games first and they're like, oh, it doesn't damage any of my party members when I do it. I can just kill anybody. And then it's like, yeah, you're going to kill your people too. That's just going to hit them straight in the face. Yeah, that doesn't work.
No, for sure. I think there's a compromise between reality and sort of the fantastical elements in a lot of these games, and each group has their balance of what they got to do, whatever. I mean, it's kind of weird because we were talking about Vampire, and I had an opportunity when I was at Gen Con to review one of their books. I think it was the Chicago one that came out or something. I remember flipping through it and reading quickly, and they had like 200 odd vampires. And the rules were they had to feed like every night or something like that. So in my head, I quickly did some math, and I said, so you're talking 200 assaults a night in a city the size of Chicago for over a year, 365 days. How many actual assaults and murders are there that are happening in this game world, right? Is this realistic? And people looked at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I go, that's just what I see. Like, that's how I approach things, right?
Right.
And they're like, well, you're not quite understanding what we're trying to do with the book. I go, no, I understand very well what you're trying to do for the book. I'm just trying to explain to you why this is a problem, and you should maybe mention something about this, about how they feed in secret, or there's a conspiracy to cover it up or whatever like that. Because the reality is, you literally have 6,000 odd murders happening a year in a city inside of Chicago. Someone's going to notice, right? Someone's going to care, right? It doesn't really work, basically. So on that fundamental level of reality, and some people are like, yeah, I don't care. It's a role-playing game. Who cares, right? And for me, that aspect is important, that we have some logical consistency in how the world is built and what's happening. So it makes sense, right? And that's I think folks who can combine these sort of different ways of looking at approaching it and create something that works for everyone, it's a good thing, because you as a player may not notice this or care about it, but it does actually impact how the construction of the world and setting works, basically, right? Because if it's so out there, it's going to knock you out of what it is you're trying to experience and take it away from the game overall, because it's not quite matching up to your experience of being a human in the real world to some degree. So it's funny how we kind of look at these things or whatever. So I always have that hat on as an individual, in my world setting and game development and things like that, where I pay attention to things like that, right? Like, how does the economy work? How does money work? Like these kind of things have to function to make it function in the game also. And a lot of folks just don't really care about that. And I'm like, I get it. It's not important, but you kind of need to have a functioning economy if you're going to have a barter and trading system in your fantasy game. If you don't have that, it just falls apart then, right? As soon as you have unlimited magical resources, why is anyone motivated to do what they do?
Right.
Right? Like, it doesn't
Exactly.
make sense. So you
it is interesting with Vampire, because the way you play in tabletop versus the live action version of Vampire is very different, because it's more like a traditional campaign, when you're doing the tabletop. But once you get into the LARPing side, it's the political intrigue. That's the part everybody wants to play. And then you've got your resource points for herd. So you're not assaulting X amount of people. Your retainers, your contacts in the police to cover it up if you do accidentally kill someone. But in the tabletop, I feel like a lot of that's just glossed over a lot of times.
I think it really just depends on the campaign, the style of the players, right? Again, it goes to player experience, what people want out of things, and some people want more of the dramatic, I want to say Blade, but that's not really the theme I want. But anyway, like different movie experiences, different game experiences, different story experiences,
right?
And again, you want to find ideally your group kind of comes together on looking for a similar vibe and atmosphere, and they get what they want out of it, and that sometimes you can experiment a little bit and try things that are a little different and see what appeals to people and things. But yeah, I mean there's a huge range of experiences out there for whatever people want.
And one thing about Vampire and all of the White Wolf stuff that really intrigued me at one point was how they had the sanctioned games, and so your the leader of your group would be sanctioned. Because I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and my friends who played in Omaha, Nebraska, but there was a big divide, and there was something going on where it was physically impossible to travel from Lincoln, Nebraska to Omaha, Nebraska in the White Wolf world. And so we had to just pretend that we lived in Omaha in order to be allowed to play. So it's weird when the gaming company has that, but they gave that much extra support and extra material to you to use, because you have all this extra lore going on. But I played with some wacky freaking LARPers, man. I didn't get to play too many games, but we had the mad scientist who walked around in a coat, and she had all these test tubes filled with pop rocks, and then she'd dump some soda in them and be drinking it and foaming from her mouth, and it was just crazy, man. I love LARPers, but some LARPers are just mad out of control. But I do appreciate the dedication that people show to it.
In the 90s, they had sanctioned red bead games, and if you had a red bead on you, you could play in your home, in your hometown, and find other players. And the games were 24/7 games. You were a week solid, pretty much. You were always in character. If you were out sort of the grocery store real quick and forgot to take your bead off, and there was someone with a bead at the store, suddenly you were grocery shopping in character now. It was the wildest form of LARPing I've ever experienced, and I've not done it since. I don't know that I could keep up with it now, but it was really immersive back then.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much that game brought to the RPG sphere, as it were. It was, for its time period, very innovative in terms of pushing gaming to where it is today, essentially, right? So I appreciate that system for what it really did, or that company did in terms of that. And I think before that, it was largely bunch of nerds and geeks sitting around a table throwing dice, basically, right? And then all of a sudden you had this theatrical element that got introduced into it, and then concept and theatrics was more important than the roll, than the dice or the whatever, right? And it was it was pretty innovative. I'm kind of glad that was an experience a lot of folks we know had in the gaming industry, and obviously you can see its influence in many of the games that came out after that. And where we are today in terms of role-playing stuff, right? And then all of those same folks ended up actually moving that experience into the video gaming side of things also. So you see that again. It's absolutely in there, basically. And as gaming evolves, you're seeing a lot of this kind of get passed on and get embedded within that culture effectively, right? So it's been an interesting ride overall. Yeah.
There's some really cool historical context as well. A lot of people think that Satanic Panic was over by the 80s, when in fact Vampire the Masquerade was in its initial form of live action was towards the actual end of Satanic Panic in the 90s, because we had all these people going back on talk shows like they did during D&D about how vampire changed their life. There were so many vampire cults. There's the big talk show. I can't remember. I think it was Jenny Jones who had a group of players on, and one of them actually convinced the other ones to kill their parents in character. So it was this totally odd thing, like Satanic Panic's over, but it's peaking up there in the 90s, and then with Vampire, then it just kind of gone out.
Well, that's good. I hadn't heard about that one.
Really? Yeah, no, that was a big thing. It was big in about mid 90s, 95, 96.
Oh, that was the years that I didn't exist in reality. Okay. There were a couple of years there between college and there after that for a little bit. It was just, I don't really remember much of it. It took place in Omaha. That was it.
When I was a kid, I thought LARPing was bad because of Tom Hanks. He made that Mazes and Monsters movie that was loosely based on a true story. So I thought, oh, people are just going into caves and killing each other. That's what live action role playing is.
Yeah, I think very loosely based, but yeah.
Yeah, extremely loosely based.
that was actually one. Okay, it was like Mazes and Monsters. I want to play D&D. Go ask Alice. Drugs sound fun. You know. I was a horrible child that way. I was like, this is intriguing. I want to know how that works. One thing I love, though, about particularly tabletop role-playing games is that it gives people so much, like, you guys build the lore. You build all these different stories and different things for us to go through and all of the different rules, but it allows every person to also tell their own story. You know, you keep journals. Well, I do, you know, of all the different characters and what they've gone through and how they're getting along with different people. So you totally get to make these other characters. And even when it's just a regular gaming thing, you know, like people write fan fiction and different stuff based off of their favorite video games and how they'd like to go about doing it. And that's the next step towards writing your own stories and coming up with your own things. You're inspiring a whole generation of writers here, and you've got comic book out now. You've got things going on that line. So I love that you guys have so many different avenues of storytelling that you're able to use and to influence other people with. Mm-hmm. So that's like I said, our focus here is about all of the storytelling, and I do definitely want to keep pushing the Kickstarter because it's awesome. And you guys, you've seen the bits. You've seen. We're gonna show again real quick this back thing because it's a little bit bigger here. Gorgeous covers and
amazing.
Yeah, but go here, come over. Get your pledge in, go through everything, check out the Kickstarter. There are links up above or down below in whatever format you're watching this on. And we also have links to get a hold of Jesse. And if you want to get a hold of Dev, get a hold of Jesse. And Jesse will get a hold of Dev. Because...
Yeah, we both look at the Dead Money account, so you can contact us that way. But you're right. Ultimately, a lot of this is about presenting in different formats, essentially interactive storytelling, right? To some degree, right? I mean, as the main authors or whatever, you obviously have a role you play in a voice, but you know, the idea behind all of these things really is to have that interaction, the interactivity, to allow other folks to have their voice to join what essentially is a collaborative storytelling, world, essentially, right? So that's the goal. And you know, like I said, I've found now, having been doing this for so long, the medium isn't really that important. It just, you know, gives you some sort of scaffolding around which to build the rules of how to do the interactive storytelling. But all of this stuff to me is very much in the same sort of sphere where video games, comics, movies, role-playing games, all of these things, at the end of the day, really allow accessibility for folks to engage in this interactive storytelling sort of things that we do. And as I originally talked about how important sharing stories is for humans, it's like I said, I truly believe it's a shorthand form of way of dealing with the chaos of the world. I really believe that, right? It's sort of like we live in a universe that's uncertain, and there's just a lot of chaos or whatever, and we kind of have this instinctive need to reach out to share our emotions and our sort of viewpoints about the world or whatever, and we really do that through narrative, essentially, right? That's the primary way we actually communicate all of this kind of stuff like that. and then the rest of it all is just, like I said, in a set of sort of structural scaffolding to allow and facilitate all of that, things like that. So that's how I approach a lot of what we do. So when you look at some of our material we did between video games, role-playing games, short stories, long-form essays, whatever, it's really all the same to some degree, because the underlying pinnings of how we approach it is identical. It's all about just constructing narrative, constructing storytelling, and making it interesting, and putting enough in there that folks get something out of it, basically, right? And as I said, I go back to even when I was doing technical writing. How do you appeal to someone to read the instruction manual of a washing machine? Like, it's not it's not a thing that you're gonna really kind of want to do. But if you can make it interesting enough and tell a story out of it, you're gonna be able to pass on the knowledge you need how to operate the damn thing, and also hopefully in their entertainment to some degree, or introduces them to the world of how things are washed in a washing machine or whatever, right? So that's the craft of the artist, in a sense, or the author, that goes into text, essentially, right? And I always look at things that way. I don't care how boring or whatever you think it is. I'm going to try and make it interesting for you, right? So yes, I think I may have written instructions for appliances at some point somewhere in the technical writing space out there. And you'll see that sometimes. I've actually encountered products where I pick up something and you're like, is that a joke? Like, is that an Easter egg in there in this little pamphlet? And you're like, yep, this author is very clever, obviously, whoever it is, or they're bored and they just want to do something a bit more. And to me, that is the sort of spice of life of when you find this sort of thing that appeals to you, gets along, right? And one of my favorite authors is Douglas Adams, and I think the guy just has an incredible way of explaining very complex philosophy using friggin' towels and things. Like it's just like, all right, this just works.
I'm gonna make the offer now. If we double our Kickstarter goal, Dev will write Washing Machine, the role-playing game, as a free, 2-page thing for all backers. So,
I'm in.
Absolutely.
Can we do a DLC sort of vibe with the dryer, so we can talk about Socktopia, which is the other dimension where one sock goes out of every load?
Well, we're gonna have to wait for the next Kickstarter.
Absolutely.
Okay. Fair enough.
Introduction. Your character is going to be the repairman.
Don't give it all away yet. All right, we got to get double our funding goal.
Yep. Stay tuned.
We currently have a house that's a mimic as well as a dread gazebo in our current campaign that are in the town that we own. So we've been stealing from all sorts of silly lore that are going around. But sorry, I'm stopping myself now because I was doing that gamer thing that you do, and you're like, and let me tell you about No. That's not the point of this. Wrong show. We have one of those for that. But you should write for IKEA, because I don't understand shit. It's a good thing that I know how to build things just intuitively when I get things from there, because I'm just like, what?
Imagine the fun you could have writing for IKEA, though, like all the little things you can put in there. That would be awesome.
So we have some viewers here that are not commenting. If you're watching right now and you would like a chance to, I see you guys watching. I see you're here. Type hashtag dead money and you can get one person just dropped as soon as I said that. They're like, she's watching me. Shit.
Now we know where you live.
Hashtag dead money so you can win an issue 1 of the Dead Money comic book series. Come on. Mm-hmm. That's what you're here for. Get yourself some free shit.
And then immediately give them all your money, because that's how this works.
Yes. That's my biggest goal, is to get people to give away all their money.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be alone and poor. Yeah. It's I have to have others join me in the cardboard fortress that we're gonna have built down by the river somewhere. That's lined with Gemini mailers as far as the eye can see.
We did announce about a year or so ago that we wanted to break the world record for the largest box fort. I still really want to do that.
Yeah, we're going to design it with I think weren't we going to design it with Sims and
just see how big we can make it functionally. Yeah.
You guys want to join us in our box fort?
Back our Kickstarter, we're happy to ship you as many Gemini mailers as you want. At that point, we have a pile of them.
You get every
All right.
Kickstarter in the world all together in one place. You have to enter. You have to buy a Kickstarter to enter this location. It's a little shanty town of box forts.
It'll be fun. The box fort universe.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing, for some reason, people. Yes, Dylan, I know you did. People are watching. They just aren't commenting. So I don't think we really need to spin the wheel. I think Dylan is definitely going to be the winner here when it comes to getting something. But he has been keeping us company through the whole thing. And
That's true.
I was going to pull up your Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, Dylan, but it's kind of long and different. Okay. And from I was going to pull up your Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, Dylan, but it's kind of long and different. Okay. And from I was going to pull up Dylan, but
that was wild.
If it goes.
I have no idea where that came from. Okay. That's crazy.
Either.
This is like, I'm muting myself. She has no idea it was me. That's what's going on.
It might have been.
Red Pasta did it.
I may have broken everything.
Yeah, that was just weird. Yay, StreamYard. Thank you. But so let me know a couple last things. We're going to go through, I'm going to pull it up one more time if I can. Okay, so you guys, you have until Thursday, May 28th at 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time to hop in and get over here. We're pushing towards the end now, and if you can pledge enough, you can go ahead and we'll get the washing machine story. It's going to be beautiful. We'll see. I'll try to get in. We'll see if we can get Jim Lee to illustrate that one, because it'd be
might be
kind
able to
of
get
fun.
a Maytag sponsorship.
Have a great.
Do they even exist anymore? I don't even know.
Yeah, the guy from the Lost Room, the actor, is now the Maytag man, and he like runs around and pretends he's a washing machine or dryer, and like gets carried upstairs and does all these weird things. But
It's like Killer Sofa, but with a dryer.
yeah.
So, who knew there was a Maytag universe out there? Right?
Yep. Apparently, the four of us did, and that's about it.
I'm gonna start doing some fan fiction about it. It'll be great. All right. Well, I can put you guys in touch with Dylan. Let us know, what do you have plans for coming up? How long do you think before the next the issue 3 is going to be finished and the next Kickstarter is going to start? And anything else that you guys have coming your way that you're working on?
Yeah. So the final inks are coming in for issue 3 right now. Probably by the end of the Kickstarter, the vast majority of it will be done, if not everything. But then we'll still have to do some lettering and graphic production. So, there's a little bit of time there still. And then the summer is busy with some con appearances for me. I am going to be at StokerCon this year, Montreal Comic Con, hopefully Fan Expo in Toronto, and Gen Con right now. So if you're at any of those things, I'm happy to talk about games, comics. And I have a short story being sort of, or shortlisted, I guess, for a collection this year about a magical pool hustler. And I have a novel about it's a near future competitive esports story that I am hoping to do something with this year. So those are pretty much what's on my plate. And we might have some more RPG stuff down the road. But the one thing we do have that we can talk about is for Free RPG Day this year, which is June. I think it's June. Dev and I wrote the Marvel adventure for this year. We did last year's and we did this year's. So we're super stoked about that.
Very cool. Dev, do you have anything coming up?
Yeah, so I don't think I'll be attending much on the convention side of things, etc. I just had foot surgery last Friday, actually, so it's going to be a while before I recover on that, unfortunately. So I don't think I'm going too many places, but I've been working on some more short stories. So I have 3 or 4 I'm currently working on. Hopefully be published, some anthology somewhere down the road. As Jesse said, we've been working with Marvel to do some of their materials, etc. And I think we might be doing one more down the line there at some point. Basically, the other major thing I want to work on is I want to do some more political writings and analysis, essentially. And that's just for me personally, because I'm finding the world is in a very chaotic space. It's a lot of challenges out there. I don't know what I can do with raising my voice on certain things or whatever, but I'm going to at least give it a shot to see if I can influence folks' opinions or viewpoints on, you know, what ought to be done to fix some of the chaos that's happening, basically. So I've been focusing a bit of my energies on those sort of things, also in terms of writing, and you know, just sort of extending my own experience as an author to see what else I can do. So I think that's about it, basically, at the moment, what I'm currently focusing on.
Awesome. I hope to be able to read some of your stories sometime soon.
Same.
So,
Yep.
Oh, Dylan hopes you're getting well. You're healing well. But anyway,
coming along. So
yeah, that's hard. I broke a foot once. I didn't have any surgery done, but I was on crutches for quite a while, and it was really annoying because I'm short. They do not make crutches for short people. They do their best, but you're still like, I'm getting around. But thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. It's morning.
It's not
morning. Okay. Thank you for joining. It might be. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you guys for joining us this morning. It was wonderful to get a chance to talk to you again. And go ahead, go over. The links are around. Get yourself in on this comic because it is really awesome. I've gotten to read more than you guys have. So neener, and it's so much fun. I can't wait to see what else is coming up. And I'm like teasing you guys, but you should be teased. You should be intrigued. You should be wanting to read this. If you like horror, if you like Western, if you like character development, there's a lot of character development going on in this. So please go over and give these guys your money. It's so important.
And we'll
All
know.
of it. Buy everything. Chat with them. Go hang out with them. It's super fun. All right. Love you too, Dylan. Bye. And to everybody else, thank you. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks a lot.